Alrighty, SY Sports back with another college football video. We are on to the SEC East for our season predictions. It's in the middle. It's towards the end of the night of week 0. I know this video is probably going to be coming out a little later. I just had some stuff I had to take care of, but for now we're on to this. So yeah, football's here, and let's get into it. Coming in with the highest over/under in the SEC East is Georgia with an over/under of 11, over -130, under +100. Taking a look at their schedule, you got Oregon, big game, week 1. You go to South Carolina, you go to Missouri, you get Auburn at home, you get Vandy at home, you get Florida off the bye, you get Tennessee at home, then back-to-back at Mississippi State, at Kentucky, tough stretch, and then you got probably a depleted Georgia Tech team at the end of the season. Looking at the schedule, I see best case is 12-0, and worst case is 8-4, and that's just if, the defense is just not what like the talent doesn't come up to where the defense should be. They just, because they lost so much, nothing's working. Stetson Bennett is terrible. They have no good quarterback, but I don't ever see that happening. But according to my numbers, it says worst case would be 8-4. Now they do have a schedule of 26-53, which is the 5th toughest in the SEC, but they have a shitload of talent, which is 343, and it's the 2nd highest in the country. So I have Georgia going 11-1 and 7-1 just because they are so talented and Kirby Smart's a good coach. If I were to do the over/under of 11, I would take the over. Talent, Kirby. Now the loss of the draft picks might help them, but they're just going to reload. Now they're probably not going to be as good, but they have a better chance of losing 0-1 games than they would to lose 3 or 4 games, or 2, 3, or 4 games. So I have Georgia going 11-1 and 7-1 in the SEC East. Coming in second is Kentucky with an over/under of 8, over +115, under -145. Looking at the schedule, your MAC run at Florida, right in the middle, so that's a tough week 2. At Ole Miss, South Carolina at home, Mississippi State at home. You get Tennessee off the bye, but you have to go there, and it's never been good there. You go to Missouri after that, Vanderbilt at home, Georgia at home, Louisville at home. Now, looking at the schedule, I see best case 11-1, and that's if Will Levis is really, really good and Mark Stoops keeps doing what he's doing because he's done a phenomenal job there. I see worst case being 7-5, so that's just the Mark Stoops factor. He's going to be a good coach. He's going to have that team ready, but they might take a step back this year after what they lost. Their schedule rating was 24-39, which is the easiest schedule in the SEC, which is nice to have, so that's also an advantage. And their talent rating is 257, which is 8th in the SEC. So they're not very talented, but Mark Stoops makes up for everything. So if I were to take the over/under of 8, I would take the over 1 for the odds, and 2, Mark Stoops. I just trust Mark Stoops, and I think he can win 9 games, 10 games. But with that being said, I have Kentucky going 8-4 and 5-3 in the SEC. I just think they take a little step back, and I don't think Will Levis is as good as people think. But I still think they're good enough to, be up there at the top of the SEC East. Tied with Kentucky is Tennessee of an over/under of 8. The over is -105 and the under is -125. So they're kind of right. They're right there with they think 8 wins is plenty. Looking at their schedule, you got Ball State, easy win. You go to Pitt, that'll be a tough game. You got to get revenge from last year. You go Akron at home, you get Florida at home, and then you get the bye and go to LSU. That'll be tough. But then you get Bama right after that. So really tough 2 games. UT Martin to win. You get Kentucky at home. You go to Georgia this year. You get Missouri at home. You go to South Carolina and to Vandy at the end of the season. And I'd watch out for Vanderbilt this year. So looking at the schedule, I saw best case was 10-2, and that's if Hendon Hooker, is the real deal, and Josh Heupel actually decides to put up or make a defense this year. And I also see worst case is 5-7, and they just go back to being Tennessee. But I think with Hendon Hooker, they'll be all right. And I have Tennessee going 7-5, 3-5. Now their schedule rating was a 25-39, which is 9th in the SEC, so it's a little on the easier side. Their talent rating is 261, which is 7th, so it's just they're a little more talented than Kentucky, but it's about the same. And if I were to do the over/under of 8, I would take the under. I know Hendon Hooker is going to be good, but I don't know if Josh Heupel is going to create a good defense this year. I don't know if that up-tempo is going to screw them like it did in a few games last year. And Tennessee just needs to prove it like some of these big teams that have fallen off. They haven't been anything for a long time. And with all this hype, I just don't see them, being second in the East and doing anything. They need to prove it to me. So I have them going 7-5 and 3-5 in the SEC East. Fourth highest win total is Florida at an over-under of 7, over minus 135, under minus 105. Taking a look at their schedule, they got the big game against Utah at home, which I think they'll win. So in advance, if you're seeing this, I would take Florida in the spread and the money line right now because everyone's high on Utah, and I just don't see them walking into the swamp and winning this game. I think they're going to be all cramped up. And plus, looking at Utah's win total, it's only at 8, and everyone's putting them in the playoffs, so that's just weird to me. I think, I don't know with Utah, but I just don't see them winning this game. This is very, very tough. Then you get Kentucky week 2 at home. Well, everyone's picking Kentucky to beat Florida. It's like Florida's fallen off the earth. They're still a very talented team, and now they have Billy Napier, who I think is going to be better than Dan Mullen. Kentucky's only won one time in the swamp in like 30 years. So what's making them trying to win now? Like, I understand Kentucky's good, but winning in the swamp is very hard, and Florida is, like I said, is very talented. So I see Florida winning this game too. Now you got USF. I think they win. Everyone's picking them to lose to Tennessee too, just because it's on the road. Well, Florida's been pretty good against Tennessee, no matter where it's been. So I could see them winning that too. Eastern Washington. I mean, I could easily see Florida being 5-0, 6-0 going into that LSU game. So I think they got a good advantage this year, but who knows? Billy Napier needs to turn out, and Anthony Richardson needs to turn out. You get Georgia off the bye. So both those teams coming off byes, that should be a pretty even match. It has been for the past, 15 years. I know Georgia's super talented, but there's, been three-year streaks from each team for the past 15 years. So I think that's a flip 'em game. You go to Texas A&M, that's tough. South Carolina at home, at Vandy, and at Florida State this year. So looking at the schedule, I see best case 10-2, worst case 6-6, and they did what they did last year. Schedule rating was a 27.51, so it's on the tougher side, but that's just because the second half of the schedule is really tough. The talent rating, I had at 290, which is 4th in the SEC and still top 10 in the country, so I don't know what's all this noise about them not being talented. I think they have a bunch of talent on that team still. If I were to take the over-under of 8 or 7, I would easily take the over. I'm way higher on Florida than most people are. You got Billy Napier. They're stupidly talented. Yes, they have a tougher schedule, but that's on the back half. So if they start off, 5-1, 6-0, I could easily see them winning 2 of the 3 of those last games. At least 2 for sure, and then it depends what Florida State is. So if you win 5 and you get to 7 of beating South Carolina and Vandy, you only need one more somewhere, and that's LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, and Florida State. And I think you can win one of those games. That being said, I have Florida going 8-4, 5-3. I just see, with it being Billy Napier's first year, I don't see them getting to the 10-win stretch. And then with what I saw last year, I know there is a bunch of talent, but Billy Napier's got to be able to coach that talent. So I'm going to kind of split the gap and go 8-4, 5-3. Next is South Carolina of an over/under of 6.5, over minus 120, under minus 110. Schedule rating was a 25.03, which is 10th in the SEC, so it's easier side of the SEC, which is always nice. The talent rating was 269, which is really high. I thought that was very shocking to me how talented South Carolina is coming to the season, and with Spencer Rattler coming in there, I think it's going to help them a lot. Looking at their schedule, Georgia State, they'll be talented, but you should win. At Arkansas, Georgia, weeks 2 and 3, I think those are probably going to be losses just because Spencer Rattler is going to have to get used to SEC defenses, and that's just a tough 2 games to have for your first 2 teams in the SEC. Then you get Charlotte and South Carolina State. You should win those. At Kentucky, that's a flip 'em. You do get a bye for Texas A&M, so people are picking that as an upset, but I don't really know because they haven't beaten Texas A&M since A&M's joined the conference. Missouri, at Vandy back-to-back. Should be able to win those. At Florida, that's a tough one. Tennessee at home, and then at Clemson. I have a gutty feeling that they're going to beat Clemson this year. I don't know why. I just do. Even with it being in Death Valley, I just do. So looking at the schedule, I see best case is 11-1 because I'm really high on Spencer Rattler, and I think with him being there, it's going to boost them up. But however, I see worst case being 4-8, and Spencer Rattler can't get used to the SEC, and they just get overpowered by most of these SEC teams. If I were to take the over/under of 6.5, I would take the over. I'm just Spencer Rattler and then Shane Beamer, and then the talent being higher than what I thought. I'm a little higher on South Carolina this year, but I have South Carolina going 7-5, 4-4. I think they win a game or two that they're not supposed to, but I think they lose a game that they're not supposed to. So South Carolina 7-5, 4-4, and Spencer Rattler I think is going to be right up there with the best of the best. So next is Missouri with an over/under of 5, over -150, under +20. I like that a lot. So they have a schedule rating of 2405, which is one of the easier schedules in the conference. So it's rated 13th, so that's good to have. However, their talent rating is a 230, and it's in dead last by a big margin. So I think that might hurt them a lot this year. Looking at their schedule, you should win the first one. At Kansas State, that'll be a tough one. You should win the third one. At Auburn, that'll be tough. Georgia's always tough. At Florida's going to be tough. You get Vandy off the bye. At South Carolina, Kentucky, at Tennessee, New Mexico State. You should win that one, and then Arkansas. So you get most of your tough games at home, which is nice to have. So looking at the schedule, I see best case 8-4, and that's just if everything clicks. However, I see worst case being 4-8, and it's just kind of like another year of Missouri football. The over/under is 5. I would take the under. The talent's not there. We don't really know if Eli Drinkowitz can still coach in this league, and it just comes down to their quarterbacks. They lost Connor Bazelak, and I'm high on him at Indiana. So I think losing him is going to hurt you. I have Missouri going 5-7, 2-6 in the SEC. With the lowest win total and my favorite, this would have been one of my personal season win total best bets, but with it being this late in the season, I didn't get it out in time because I got them at the over at +140. But let me tell you why. So their schedule rating was a 2868, which is the third toughest in the country. So that's not good. Their talent rating, however, is 253, which is way higher than what they were a year ago, and I think they're starting to bring in some talent. Hiring of Barton Simmons was a great idea, and he knows what he's doing. He knows how to use that smaller talent for now, and I think they're doing a fantastic job. Now, I still think they're a few years away, but I think they're on the rise. Looking at the schedule, at Hawaii, who knows with this one, but this is a game you need to win. But this is a game in the past that Vandy would probably lose. Elon at home, we should win that. Now, Wake Forest, without Sam Hartman there, I think you can win that game. At NIU, I think they were overrated. They had a lot. There was some like weird fact of like luck factor last year where they were like the luckiest team in the country, and it's a MAC school. I know SEC MAC school, you think automatic win, but it's Vandy, so we don't know. However, Vandy with the improvements, I think they're going to easily win this game. Now you do draw Bama on the road, that's going to suck. But after that's a bye, and then you did draw Ole Miss as well, but you get them at home, and then at Georgia. So those 3 games, I think are probably all losses. At Missouri, with that being on the road, I think they end up losing that game, but they are more talented than Missouri now, so we'll see. Get South Carolina off the bye, get 2 bye weeks since they're playing week 0. You go to Kentucky this year, and then you get Florida at home this year. So I saw best case was 6-6, and that's if everything clicks. They win their first 4, and then somehow upset 2 SEC teams. But worst case, I saw 4-8, and their win total's at 2.5. I think they can win their first 4 games, and then after that, it's just luck. Excuse me. Worst case was 3-9. Sorry. So that's if Sam Hartman comes out of nowhere or they lose one of these road games. So best case 6-6, worst case 3-9. If I were the over/under, I've already been saying this. It's at 2.5. I would easily take it. I think they could easily win 3 games, and I think now with Sam Hartman gone, the worst is now 4-8. They're just way more talented now, and where the odds were and what the number is, you can easily make a good check out early in the season because you could 3 weeks in, you could make a bunch of money right away. So I have Vanderbilt going 4-8 and 1-7, so that means I have them upsetting someone in the SEC. And I have them. I do have them losing one of those non-conference games. So my SEC rankings would be Georgia 1, 11-1, and 7-1. I have Florida second place, 8-4, 5-3. Kentucky in third, so that means I have Florida beating Kentucky. Kentucky 8-4, 5-3 as well. Fourth place, I have South Carolina, so that means I haven't beaten Tennessee. at 7-5, 4-4, and then I have Tennessee in fifth at 7-5, 3-5. I think Tennessee is just not going to be as good as everyone thinks. I just don't see it. They need to prove it. Sixth place, I do have Missouri at 5-7, 2-6. Then Vanderbilt improving, but they're still going to be 4-8, 1-7. So that's my SEC East predictions for the 2022 season. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I'd like to hear what everybody thinks. And please also like the video, share, subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. And go Vandy because it's week 0 and I bet on them tonight. So see ya.